so much for joining us today. We are continuing our series on the COVID survival toolkit for parents. And I know many of you, including myself, are distance learning our kids right now. So I wanted to get a teacher that can give us a little bit perspective, maybe some tips for our children. And we have a very special guest with us here today, Jamie from Bethany Assembly. She's a children's director there, but she's also been a teacher for 8 years at an elementary school here in Hawaii. And we're so happy that you're here with us here today. But let's dive right into the content. So Jamie, what are some things that parents can do to help keep their children's focus while they're distant learning?
Thank you, Pastor Trenton. I'm really excited to be able to share with you guys today to help keep your child focused during distance learning. Some things that we do in the classroom, and I think you could do the same at home. One major thing is to create a space for learning. In the classroom, it's a little easier because it is a classroom, but I think it's really important at home to create that same type of space. So whether it's in the dining room, at the table, or even a small table outside, or if they have a desk in their room, create a space that allows for learning to take place. The couch might not be the greatest place for some kids. You know, it's a little harder to focus when they're sitting in the living room. So definitely create that space where kids can truly learn at. And one thing for me as a teacher that I've learned over the years, you know, we always expect that the desk has to be the place that kids learn at. And one thing they've really come out with is differentiated seating. So some kids, they're different. They learn better laying on the floor, being able to use a clipboard. So be flexible. At school, we call it flexible seating. So what might work for one of your kids might not work for another.
Wow.
One of your kids may not like sitting at the table, and you spend more time saying, hey, focus, look at the table, look at the table. Whereas if you let them lay on the floor with a clipboard and a picture that they have to color, they may be more willing to color for a longer period of time. So super important to remember that not all kids are the same. And what we expect out of one of our children might not work for the other. And so I think it's really important to create that learning space, but also when creating that space, make sure they have what they need. In the classroom, kids are famous for like, I gotta go find a pencil, I gotta go get this, and everybody's trying to learn on the carpet and they're still getting what they need. And I can see that happening at home too, where it's like, oh, I can't find this. So creating that area where the kids have everything they need right there in front of them, or in an organized way for them. So I think it's super important to have that for them. That would help eliminate the walking around and getting off task. And another thing I think is really important to help them stay focused is goal setting. Even if you have a kindergartner and it's like, okay, our goal is to finish these 3 items today on the list from your teacher. And write those things down, whether it be like on a whiteboard or on a sheet of paper, something that you have for the kids. Create those goals or weekly goals. Even at this point, depending how long we're out, you know, might be monthly goals, but definitely set goals for the kids. And some of them, they even need time period goals. Like for the next hour, this is what we're going to work on, or this is what we're going to finish. So setting goals so that they have something to aim for. And then the last one, to go along with setting goals, create schedules. In the classroom, one thing that I have on the wall is a schedule for the kids, so they know what time they come in and what happens throughout the day. It just helps with better transition for us. And I know you're at home, so it's a different learning space. But even if you had like, okay, in the morning, we're going to do reading block, and then we're going to take a break and we'll do some Bible reading and worship, and you can play a game outside. Just different things. Creating that schedule will help them stay on task and to create that routine or that normalcy. Because at home, you know, that's not normally the environment that they're doing the distance learning or learning at. So creating those schedules might help them stay on task. And I've seen so many cute ideas online where parents use like index cards and create those schedules, or just type it out for the kids. Or like I said, even just a whiteboard and a pen, things like that, writing it down.
I'm sure there's a bunch of ideas on Pinterest or
Yes.
online, but you don't have to have the Pinterest perfect mom or dad
No,
to
not
do
at
it. You
all.
know, just put it on a piece of paper, make sure it's clear and legible, and posted someplace. You know, I think that's a really great tip for our parents to help. I think key what you said is, you know, making sure that they have a space for learning, and whatever that space may look like for the child may be a little different, but as long as there's that designated space for the child to learn, I think that's really important for it. And I think something that goes along with what are some tips for keeping the children focused. I think do you have any what do you call it? Do you have any advice for maybe classroom management, or now because the classroom is at home, maybe even some discipline management tips or discipline tips for these parents who are now putting on a teacher hat or a facilitator hat versus just a parent hat?
Yes, and I can totally see where that's a struggle because, like, as a parent, you're the parent, and you address a lot of other needs that the child has. So having to be the teacher now can I can see how kids and even my students, they'll like write things like, "My mom doesn't know what she's teaching me," and it's funny, like to them, my mom's not the teacher, so it's really hard for them. They feel like my parents not doing it the way they're supposed to. And so I think just as the teacher in the house for the parents and for the students, the children, I think it's important to have expectations and agreement. So one thing we do at the beginning of the year is I allow my students to help me create the rules in the classroom for the year. And of course, it's not crazy rules. They're rules that I would have created, but when they're a part of that rule creating or that agreement process, they take a little bit more ownership over it, and they're a little bit more accountable because I can say, hey, you helped create those. Those were your rules, not mine. So I think it's really important to have those expectations and agreements and rules. And for example, the kids might say that, okay, when I'm working on my devices, I won't go on YouTube or I won't play my games. That will be my agreement that I'll focus on whatever program I need to be on. And kids know right from wrong. I mean, I've taught first graders, I have second graders now. They know what's expected of them. And so I think when they help create those agreements, they feel a little bit more ownership over it. And on the other hand, along with those rules and agreements, my kids also help me come up with consequences. Like, what do you think is an acceptable consequence? And I know you might say, oh,
Right.
my kids are too young. They don't believe in consequences. But they know, like, if I don't finish my work, I can't go to recess. So, same type of consequence at home. If I don't finish what I'm supposed to do for my teacher today, then maybe I'll have to give up some of my play time or adjust my free time for today. So I think it's super important as parent and child to have those agreements and rules and consequences. And don't get stressed out. That's what we tell our parents too. Like if something is really hard for the kid to do and it's really stressful, don't stress yourself out. Like take a pause from it, take a break and move on. And maybe it's not a break where they can play, but maybe they just need a timeout to read a book or draw a picture, do something to kind of break up that stressful moment. And one thing, even for me as a teacher, I'm reminded that it's a stressful time for everyone. And so I know a lot of parents are like, my kids don't listen. I'm a horrible teacher. Like I've heard so many parents say that, like, I'm not made to be a homeschool teacher. And a lot of us were not made, for these circumstances. We there's no way we could have prepared for this. So I definitely encourage the families to just work together, I think, and for parents to not get so stressed about the disciplining part, although it's important and they have assignments. Don't let those assignments get away in the family, and of that bond. I think that's super important. And so we always tell our families, like above everything else, just take care of yourselves and your family. And so I think those agreements and rules and consequences, and you as a family know like what your child enjoys doing. And it doesn't have to be a negative consequence. It could be a positive consequence. I know sometimes we think we have to discipline for bad behavior, but instead we could reward for good behavior. And it doesn't even have to be physical rewards. It could be, in the classroom, kids like to dance to a song, or take time to do things that they love to do. We get to go ride our bike outside for a little while as a reward for finishing what you need to do. So it doesn't always have to be a negative consequence, but also just positively reinforcing the desired behaviors from your kids. I hope that answers
Yeah,
it.
no, that's a really great answer. And I love the consequences part, especially what you just said, don't just punish the bad consequences, but reward the good behavior. I think myself included, I forget this sometimes, and that I could be missing an opportunity to reinforce what I want to see my daughter or my son do if I don't reward the behaviors that I see that I want or see that are good. I think that's a really good tip there. And I know that this is a time that we are all learning. You know, all of us are new to distance learning, including the teachers. Most of our teachers now have not had experience distance learning prior to the last month or 2 months now. And it's just kind of crazy. So I just wanted to ask you, Jamie, is there some things that parents can do, or how can parents help our teachers out, you know, and how make it an easier time for our teachers? Because yes, it's stressful for us parents, but I'm sure it's a different kind of stress for our distance learning teachers out there trying to keep a hold of their class while they are not in the same room as them. So you have any tips or thoughts for that?
Yes, definitely. And thank you for asking this question because, I think in this time, it's something that is definitely, we as teachers feel a little helpless, I'll be honest, and it's heartbreaking that we don't know when or if we'll ever get to go back to school with the kids and trying to plan out the best activities. And so I think first and foremost, what you guys can do as a family is be patient with your teachers. As much as this is new for you, like Pastor Trenton said, it's new for us as educators too. And we're adjusting to distance learning, and we're doing our best to provide those meaningful activities for families, and trying to accommodate for lack of technology in some houses, and just the different needs. And so trying to meet those needs in the classroom has now turned into trying to meet the needs of not only the students
Wow.
but the parents.
Yeah.
And so be patient with us. And like for my grade level, one thing we did is we sent out a feedback form. Hey parents, first week of distance learning, what can we do? Because we want to know what can we do to make this experience better for families, for us as educators as well. So that would lead to my second one. So first one, to be patient with us, but also number two, to be honest with your teachers. And that's why I think that feedback form that we did was so good for us. Some of it, of course, was hard to read because we're like, oh man, we might have not did such a good job on that. But some of it was really encouraging as well, and all of it was a great learning experience for us. So as families, my encouragement to you is to be honest with your teachers. If you're struggling with an assignment, let the teacher know. Or if you're still working and you can't help your child till you get home at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, just let the teacher know that. I think sometimes we don't realize, as educators, we fail to realize that, hey, lots of parents are trying to work from home and entertain their children and teach their children and, feed them. And there's so much going on in the home. And so I think it's really great when parents can be honest with the teachers and say, this is what our family situation looks like. And this is why maybe we're not doing any work online. Or one thing that was a big eye opener for us was that some families only have one device for more than one child. So what we expect to be done in the morning might not get done in the morning. So I think when teachers realize and educators realize what families are going through, it's easier for us to serve you and to help you through this time as well. So be patient and be honest and ask for help. If some of us, we're like sitting at our computer and I'm like waiting, because it's what I love to do. I love to be able to communicate with the family. So don't be afraid to ask the teacher for help. I would rather the families ask for help than me not knowing and just assuming that everything's going great. So yes, definitely reach out to the teachers if you need anything, because we still want to serve you and we want to be a part of this distance learning. And so thank you guys for supporting the teachers in this. I know it's a tough season for everyone, and so it's a blessing to be able to hear from families. One thing that I love too is when families send messages from the kids or videos or even just what's going on at home. What are we working on? It's encouraging for the teachers too, and I try to do the same for students too. But just having that open communication now more than ever, I think, is really important.
Wow, thank you so much for those insights. I think it's important to be patient, but at the same time, be honest with what we're going through. I know for my daughter's education, the upload time for our homework was 8 p.m. and that was the first week, but that was really hard for us because we're trying to do dinner, get them ready for bed, bath time. That's the crunch time for our evening part, and it's not that our daughter didn't do her homework. It's just that trying to get it uploaded and go through all the systems to do that, was a little difficult. So our teacher extended our for all the students in the class to 11 p.m. the upload time for our homework. So that really helped out, I think, a lot of our families, and we were able to be honest, be patient, but also be honest with our teachers and help them out in that way too. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. I think you added a lot of value for those parents who are distance learning right now. And I pray that our parents learned a lot today and can put these use into practice, maybe even tomorrow as they go back to school, or this week. And I think it's important for us to keep our teachers and pray for our teachers and remember them too. They're human too, and they miss their students a lot, and they want to be there for their students and their families. So I think that's important too. Well, thanks for joining us today, and I hope you got something out of this. I think that if you are a parent who are distance learning, I pray that you be encouraged. Don't get discouraged by the amount of work or what's going on, but just try your best, be patient, and be honest with your teachers.